Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Let's go over the 6-game NBA slate for today on Draftkings. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out, really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you're interested in the spreadsheets about every single night for the NBA season, including my projections, my cheat sheet, my defense versus position chart, and my Discord chat, and all the statistics I use every single video, links in the description below for my Patreon. And well, without further ado, let's get into today's slate. I might have to pause this a couple of times. I am coughing like crazy, so just fair warning if it looks a little choppy. Hopefully I can pause it in time. I don't want you guys to hear me coughing. It's pretty violent, so jinxed myself there for a second. But anyway, how about the chalk absolutely exploding in a bad way on this slate last night? LeBron sucking right now. He had 29 points last time I looked. He had 3 points at the end of the first quarter. I think 9 points at the end of the second. I mean, he's just busting. Hassan Whiteside barely played in the game. I don't even know how many minutes he finished with, but Anthony Tolliver just took over that game. I mean, he didn't really take over the game, but yeah, Hassan Whiteside barely played. Andre Drummond, he barely played. I mean, I don't know what's going on. I mean, I didn't play Drummond. Thankfully, I mean, I liked him, but I didn't play him. Pretty much my whole lineup was like Pelicans, and like I had Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which that sucked. Carmelo Anthony. I always want to say Carmelo Anthony Towns, but Carmelo Anthony, Damian Lillard, LeBron James, Jahlil Okafor. Yeah, that was Okafor was just an absolutely crazy one. He dropped 57 fantasy points. I mean, he was min price. He got the start. Did not expect that. I think I had him projected for like 27 points if he got 24 minutes. Ended up absolutely crushing the slate. Was my number one value, so that was really nice. And he actually came in decently low owned on this slate. He was at 27%. And then I played Lonzo Ball, which, you know, everyone was out for the Pelicans, so it just kind of made sense to put him in. But anyway, on to today's slate. I'm sorry, I'm coughing so much. I want to make this video for you guys, and I can't do it in the morning, so I'm going to do it now. But we're going to start up top with James Harden here. He comes in at 13K. And even with this price being this high, it's still an easy one to me just to plug him in. And the big thing is that Russell Westbrook's going to be out for this game. I think I'm going to talk a little bit low just so I don't start coughing. It's when I take a big breath. So hopefully you can turn the volume up a little bit, but I'm going to try to talk a little bit lower just so I don't have to keep pausing. But, you know, Russell Westbrook's going to be off the court, and we know how good James Harden is when he's completely running the show. We just know how dominant he is when that's the case. Last time with him out, he dropped over 80 fantasy points versus Atlanta. I believe he had 81 points versus Atlanta in 40 minutes. Had a nice 40-point triple-double. Got that last rebound at the very end of the game because P.J. Tucker cleared the way for him a little bit. And even if he gets over 80 fantasy points, I should say, even at 13K, if he gets over, he's got 80 fantasy point upside every single time Russell Westbrook's off the court. Even when Russell Westbrook's on the court, he's got that kind of upside. Not as much, but anyway, without Russell Westbrook on the court, he's got a 47% usage rate. 47%, that's absolutely insane in 1.84 points per minute. And he's going to play like 40 minutes if the game's competitive. So it's not like where Giannis, he's got like a 1.87 point per minute rate. But he's also only going to play like 30 minutes a game. James Harden, he's at 1.84 points per minute with Russell Westbrook off. He's going to play like 40 minutes as long as this game's competitive. Now, I haven't seen the spread yet, but I do know the total is extremely high. And, you know, this game environment is just absolutely elite. A 238 point over-under, two bad defensive teams. Both are bottom 10 defensively, and Memphis is really bad defensively. They are the fourth worst. And as for Harden, as like his individual matchup, Memphis ranks 30th versus shooting guard, so really can't ask for a better matchup here or just a better overall game setup. And both teams play fast as well. They're both top 8 in pace of play, so let's just say James Harden gets 38 minutes in this game. 38 minutes at 1.84 points per minute is a little over 69 fantasy points just as a baseline projection. And if you add an elite matchup and game environment, I would honestly be shocked if he doesn't hit over 75 fantasy points. So James Harden, I do think he's a very, very good play on this slate, and I'm going to be locking him in. There's plenty of value to get him in if you choose to do so, and I would expect him to be very high owned without Russell Westbrook on the court. So if you want to play him, I say you should. I mean, he's going to be the cover photo. He's going to be pretty much everyone's cover photo, if I have to imagine. It's James Harden without Russell Westbrook. That was a lock every single game last year, even when he was in 13K plus. And I mean, we played him at 12,800 versus Atlanta. He's 13K is a pretty much same matchup versus Memphis. I don't see why we wouldn't spend the extra 200 for someone that has a 100-point upside. So James Harden, like him quite a bit. I would be definitely locking him in. And I would talk about Luka or Giannis, but it makes no sense because you're not going to be able to play both of these guys with James Harden. So it just makes no sense for me to talk about them. Although Luka is in a really good matchup versus Golden State, but just give me James Harden at 13K without Russell Westbrook on the court. Trae Young is questionable with the hamstring injury, so we'll have to see if he ends up playing. If not, I mean, you guys like Cam Reddish and Goodwin will see some bumps as well as John Collins, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Kawhi Leonard, he finds himself in a really good spot versus Cleveland with Paul George being out. So with Paul George out, we can definitely look his way. It's kind of like with Russell Westbrook being out for the Houston Rockets. And I mean, he's a little bit pricey here at 10K, but it's versus Cleveland, so I totally understand the pricing. They're a bottom 3 defensive team in pretty much all aspects. And without Paul George on the court, he's got a 37% usage rate. He's at 1.56 points per minute without Paul George. So Kawhi Leonard, I do think he's a pretty solid. I shouldn't say pivot off of James Harden because he's 3K cheaper, but if you can't get up to James Harden for some reason, I don't hate the idea of using Kawhi Leonard at 3K cheaper. He's got 60-point upside. We saw it versus Golden State. I know what you're probably thinking, yeah, there's blowout potential versus Cleveland, but the Lakers were actually struggling with Cleveland for a little bit, and you would assume that the Clippers would have blown out Golden State, but there was only a 9-point game and it stayed competitive. Kawhi Leonard played 38 minutes, had 61 fantasy points. So you really can't project blowouts, even if a total is like 14 points. The only team I really project blowouts with is Milwaukee. So I think the Clippers without Paul George, the game might stay a little bit close for a little bit at least, but they could definitely blow them out. But I still like Kawhi Leonard here at 10K. I think he's a solid play at 10K. If James Harden was on the slate, we'd probably be looking at him to be our top spend up, but James Harden is on the slate, so it's not the case. Rudy Gobert, it's an okay matchup versus Brooklyn, but I'm going to try to talk about as less guys as I possibly can. I want to talk about everybody because I'm not sure if I'm going to make it through the end of this video. But John Collins versus Phoenix, he absolutely crushed everybody as chalk. If you guys played that Sunday slate, you're probably all a little bit sour with John Collins because he was absolutely dreadful, but they were getting blown out from the start of this game. They were down almost 40 points at halftime. It was looking pretty rough for the Atlanta Hawks, and John Collins just never really got it going. He's only 2 for 11 from the field, 0 for 5 from deep, only had 5 rebounds. Pretty much the nut low for John Collins without Trae Young. And if Trae's out, got to have some interest here. It's a nice fast-paced game versus Phoenix. Both are top 10 in pace of play, and both are pretty rough on defense, and Phoenix does really struggle with big men, as we know how bad DeAndre Ayton is defensively down low. And with Trae out, John Collins is at 1.1 points per minute. We got a 224 total here and over a 25% usage rate with John Collins, so I do think he's a pretty solid mid-range play on this slate. And staying in that game, you could also look at Devin Booker at 8,200. Now, I don't love playing Devin Booker, especially in the 8K range. I kind of prefer it when he's cheaper in the 7K range. But this is a fantastic spot for him. Like I said, I don't really like paying 8K for him, but because he can really be hit or miss, but he's been more hit than miss lately. So 31 points at 8,400 is not going to cut it, but before that, 41, 51, 51, 51, 44, 50, 54, 44. He was playing very, very good, and I don't see why that can't continue here versus Atlanta. They are just a hot mess on defense, and they play fast. That suits a guy like Devin Booker well, who's going to put up a ton of shots. I think he can get 20-plus shots up in this game. And, just Atlanta sucks in all aspects on defense. It's going to be a fast-paced game. Second highest total on the slate. I think he makes sense in GPPs if you want to game stack this up. And let's see, going down the list here. Kelly Oubre, if you want to play him, you can. He's got 50, near 60-point upside. He's not the kind of guy I like to play, especially at 7,900. I mean, it's going to be hard for him to hit value. He's not going to grade out as a good point per dollar option in the slightest. I don't even like playing him when he's like 6K. Not exactly 6K, but in the mid 6K range. So I wouldn't really want to play him at 7,900, but if you're full game stacking it, I can understand wanting to play Oubre because of his upside, but he's not going to grade out as a good point per dollar option, I will tell you that. But you could look his way in game stack. Same with DeAndre Ayton. It's a really good matchup versus Atlanta. He's at 1.2 points per minute on the season. Atlanta, you can pick on them just everywhere on defense, centers, power forwards, small forwards, guards, whatever. You name it, they can smash against them. So you could certainly look his way. I think you can get a 20-point double-double out of DeAndre Ayton in this matchup. Clint Capella, though, I'd prefer Clint Capella over DeAndre Ayton just because I want exposure to Houston and just this game in general because it's by far the best game on the slate. And Clint Capella has shown way more upside than DeAndre Ayton on just consistently. I mean, he's shown a 60-point upside multiple times so far this season. I mean, he just had 58 points versus Atlanta and 59 versus Philly. Now we get a great game environment versus Memphis. They're 24th versus centers, and he's at 1.17 points per minute on the season. And no Russell Westbrook on the court as well, so you have to assume his usage would go up. Like Atlanta, when Russell Westbrook was out, he played 36 minutes, had 58 fantasy points out of 2020 game. I think he could do something similar versus Memphis, so definitely have a lot of interest in Clint Capella on tonight's slate. I think he's a very solid pairing with James Harden. Scrolling down the list a little bit. You could look at John Morant's. You could look John Morant's way if you just want to game stack this up. I don't really like playing 7,600 for him. He's just a point per minute guy, and he's never going to play like huge minutes most nights. I mean, he'll crack 30, but he's kind of stuck around that 30-minute mark, give or take. But it is a really good matchup versus Houston, and he does have near 60-point upside, so you could look his way in game stacks, but won't really grade out as a great point per dollar option for me on this slate. But I do like the game environment for sure. I think it suits a guy like John Morant pretty well. Lou Williams without Paul George, you can certainly look his way. He comes in at 7,500, and Cleveland's just so bad defensively, especially versus guards. They are one of the bottom 3 teams in the league versus guards, point guards and shooting guards. And coming off the bench, he's got a 30% usage rate, 1.21 points per minute without Paul George, and besides, that's third highest on the team, right behind Harrell and Kawhi Leonard, with Paul George being off the court. And he's been playing well recently too, 39 points, 38. 47, 36, 37, 40, so I do like that he's in good form recently, and he's going to play about 35 minutes if the game's competitive, which that could be a little bit of an issue, but just if we assume the game's competitive at least a little bit, Lou Williams should have a pretty good game. Now, he doesn't come in at value whatsoever. He's 7,500, so you're paying a bit of a premium for him, so he's more of a GPP play only for me, but I don't mind him. I also don't mind his teammate, Montrezl Harrell here. He comes in at 7K. He's quite a bit cheaper, and he's got 40-point upside. In 3 of the last 4 games, he's had 40 points. He had 40 versus Denver, 44 versus New York, 42 versus Memphis. He's going to play about anywhere from 30 to 35 minutes more than likely in this game versus Cleveland. And they're just so bad on defense. And he's got 27% usage rate, 1.23 points per minute. I think Harrell's a fantastic play in GPPs. Probably won't get there in cash games, but in GPPs, I don't mind these Clippers guys. Could be decent pivots off of the Rockets if the game does end up staying close, but that really is the concern there. Let's see, scrolling down a little bit. Jaren Jackson, again, if you just want to stay in this game, you could look to game stack it up. I don't mind Jaren Jackson. We know the guy's got a pretty high ceiling. I still can't get that one game out of my head where he just would not stop making threes. I think he made 9 3-pointers in that game. The DK Live app was just Jaren Jackson. My dog's on my lap. I thought he was making a noise. Jaren Jackson makes a 3, but the guy's got upside. I mean, 37, 29. He's got a lower floor, though. But 42, 38, 40, 31, 35, 29, 41, 30. I mean, this is a good game environment for a kind of guy like him versus Houston. They're just awful versus forwards, so they're actually pretty solid versus centers, but that's kind of more Valanciunas' route. But I think Jaren Jackson's fine in GPPs if you just want to game stack this game up. Won't grade out as a fantastic point per dollar option, but it's not too bad at 6,800. Scrolling down the list a little bit, I don't really want to talk about a lot of these guys. Dillon Brooks, so just staying in that Houston-Memphis game. I'm going to want a lot of my main lineup from this Houston-Memphis game. That's not going to be anything sneaky, but I think it's the right way to go. Dillon Brooks, though, he comes in at 5,400. I think that's a fair price for him, and I think this game suits a guy like him very, very well. He's not someone who typically plays huge minutes, but when he's on the court, he's going to be shooting the ball quite a bit. It's what he does, and he's a pretty good scorer. He's got a 23.7% usage rate. He's at 0.9 points per minute. Like I said, he's going to be shooting the ball quite a bit most nights. He only had shot the ball 11 times versus Golden State, but 20 times versus San Antonio, 20 times versus Minnesota, 19, 16, 13. Most nights he's going to put up a lot of shots, and a game versus Houston, I think that suits him really well. And also Jae Crowder is questionable for this game, so that could open up some more minutes. So I think Dillon Brooks is actually a pretty strong play. It's fast-paced game, great matchup. So Dillon Brooks, I do think he's a pretty solid play at only 5,800 or 5,400, I should say. Beverly, it's a really good matchup versus Cleveland. Not a lot of interest there, but I believe he's had a couple of good games recently. Yeah, 46, I guess that was just a 46-point game that was in my head, but 29 points isn't too bad. Going to do a little bit of everything in the stat sheet. Almost flirted with a triple-double versus Golden State. 11 boards, 9 assists, 3 blocks, 12 points. He's okay. It's a really good matchup versus Cleveland. They're bottom 3 versus point guards, but not really jumping off the page to me. But he's at 0.84 points per minute without Paul George on the court, so it's not too bad. Like I said, Jae Crowder is questionable, so we'll have to... I will say Kyle Anderson would become one of the best value plays on the slate if Jae Crowder happens to miss, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Eric Gordon, though, you got to look his way with Russell Westbrook being out. Probably going to be one of those more solid 4K plays on this slate. Should push for about 30 minutes, if not a little bit more, depending on how he's playing in this game. And without Russell Westbrook, he's got a 24% usage rate, but I will say he's only at 0.7 points per minute, which is not that great, but I think he's a safe bet for over 20 fantasy points, which I guess is not that great at 4,800, because I think there's a couple of other guys that are cheaper that can get there, but it's an elite matchup if he's going to shoot the ball. I mean, he shot 13 threes in the last game in 26 minutes. Him shooting the ball is never going to be a problem. It's just a matter of if it's going in or not. 17 shots, 14 shots, 13 shots in the last 3 games. The volume's going to be there. But he pretty much only scores. He might get a rebound or 2 and an assist or 2, but he's really going to be very reliant on scoring. But he's okay at 4,800. I don't mind that. Scrolling down a little bit. If Trae Young is out, we could look Goodwin's way. I believe he is at 4K, if I remember correct. Yeah. So he comes in at 4K, Brandon Goodwin, and he played 27 minutes in the last game. Again, it was a blowout, so I would assume if it was close, he would have played close to 30 minutes. I don't remember if he was getting run at the end of the game. That was when the Seahawks-Packers were on, so my attention was a little bit towards the football game instead of this game because I was getting blown out. But I'd have to imagine if Trae's out, I'd get close to 30 minutes. And when Trae's out, he's exactly a point per minute guy. He's got a 23.5% usage rate. And if he plays close to 30 minutes, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he got 25 to 30 points versus Phoenix. Nice, fast-paced matchup. So Brandon Goodwin, I think he'd be okay if Trae Young happens to be out because we're going to need all the value we can get if we are paying top dollar for James Harden. We could also look at Daniel House. Don't really want to play Daniel House too much, especially because he lost his starting job to Ben McLemore, but I really don't see a reason to play Daniel House. I think I'd rather just play Ben McLemore, to be honest, so yeah, don't really want to look this way. Let's see. PJ Tucker, yeah, I'd rather play PJ Tucker as well at 3,700. So I know he only played 2 minutes versus Minnesota, but he also got hurt in that game, but he is going to be good to go, and when PJ Tucker plays, he plays close to 40 minutes. He doesn't do a lot, but he's on the court. And last time Russell Westbrook was not on the court, that was versus Atlanta, and he somehow got 17 rebounds. Don't ask me how. I did not play him that day, which I liked him, but I just didn't. He didn't end up fitting my lineup, which sounds weird because he was only 4K. But he did not end up fitting my lineup, and he just crushes my soul with 17 rebounds. That's what happens. And then I wasn't point chasing, but I did play him in the next game versus OKC because he fit my lineup that night. Hey, don't ask. That's just how it went. Ended up scoring 12 points. That's just how it goes sometimes. But they got blown out. Only played 32 minutes. But you could look his way. I mean, 3,700. He can luck his way into 20 fantasy points. We've seen it before. So PJ Tucker, definitely on your radar, but very low usage player. Very low point per minute guy. I think he's like at 0.5 points per minute. But if he plays close to 40 minutes, he can trip and fall his way into 20 fantasy points. And then 2 more guys I want to talk about. Ben McLemore. So he's pretty much going to be the top value play on the slate, coming in at 3,500. So he is going. Coach Mike D'Antoni said Monday that McLemore will remain the Rockets' starting small forward for the foreseeable future. So that can only mean good things. So I assume he can get close to 30 minutes here versus it was a blowout versus Minnesota, but I can only assume he is going to get close to 30 minutes here versus Memphis, if not more, depending on how he's playing. And he's 0.74 points per minute with Russell Westbrook off the court, and the guy can shoot too. And if he gets hot, I mean, we saw it 6 for 9 from deep versus Atlanta, 26 points. I remember earlier in the season he had like a 46-point game. So Ben McLemore, I don't think he's a bad play at all. I think he's one of the top value plays on the slate, and it makes sense because we're getting exposure to this Memphis-Houston game, and it doesn't cost a lot. I think he's a free 20-plus points at 3,500, so certainly look Ben McLemore's way. I think he's going to be very popular as well. Then one more guy, if Jae Crowder happens to be out, we can look Kyle Anderson's way. Now, he is questionable, so we'll have to see if he ends up playing. But if he does, and Jae Crowder doesn't play, I mean, he should see about 25, if not more, minutes versus Houston, and that's a fantastic matchup. They rank pretty much dead last versus forwards, and with Jae Crowder off the court, he is at 0.88 points per minute, and that's pretty darn good. 3,200, you do not need to do a lot to hit value here. I don't remember if he got a spot start more recently or not. Was it versus Charlotte where he did? He had 22 minutes and 21 points. Well, if Jae Crowder's out, I think that's something similar to what we will see, maybe even better versus Houston. Nice fast-paced matchup. So Kyle Anderson, we could definitely look his way. And that's pretty much going to be it for the players we're going to talk about. But I did recently get a sponsorship from a fantasy site, so I am going to talk about them, and that is from Overlay Fantasy Sports, and they were kind enough to want to sponsor this video. So hear me out for a second. They're not your ordinary DFS website, and I mean that in a good way, not to make it sound like it's anything bad. Trust me, I love DraftKings, and I do think it's great, but it can for sure get complicated for the more casual user. I totally understand that. So if you do want to try something new in addition to what you already play every single night, I think you can try Overlay. It's a start 'em sit 'em based game where it's as simple as it sounds when I said start 'em sit 'em. You get a big list of head-to-head matchups between players, and you simply just pick which player you think gets more fantasy points that night. It's as simple as that. There's no salary cap to work with, and you're definitely not playing with sharks like, Chipotle and those kind of guys. And I know a lot of people do complain about having to play sharks, and like I said, there's nothing to worry about playing sharks in there. And you might even see me in there. I don't play every single night, but I play when I can, and I do enjoy playing when I do. It is fun to sweat the games out, and the prizes are pretty good. And just for an example, just from the head-to-head thing, like last night, one of the head-to-heads was LeBron versus Drummond, and you just pick which one thinks he scored the most. You just pick which one you think scores the most points. And if you pick Bron and he happens to outscore Drummond, you win that matchup. It's as simple as that. And if you're kind of need help on who to pick, you can always just use my projections for these head-to-head matchups. The head-to-head matchups, they have it, I wouldn't say tough. I mean, it's not like they don't make it like an easy layup. It's not like it's going to be like LeBron versus someone like Rajon Rondo. Like, obviously, you're going to pick LeBron. It's going to be someone kind of like in their DraftKings salary range, and you have to think about it a little bit. And it is pretty close, so if you do need help with that, you can always just use my projections. That's what I do, and it's worked out quite a few times, and I've won some money over on Overlay. It's pretty simple to do. And as for the prize, like the payout structure, the top 10% win 9x their money back. So it's actually a very good prize pool. Like, they have a $22 double deuce contest. If you enter that and you win $180. It's I think that's pretty darn nice. And also, if you go 12-0 in your picks, you can win the jackpot of over $5,000 as of right now. And they're also promoting their Slump Buster for you to give it a try. They're pretty much daring you to lose 20 times in a row, because if you do happen to lose 20 days in a row on their website, they will refund every single dime that you deposited. So you're also got a little bit of a safety net there if you happen to lose every single day. So if you're interested, check it out. That's overlaydfs.com. One more time, overlaydfs.com. I would put the link in the description below, but I know some YouTube channels happen to get some strikes against them for having gambling websites on their YouTube channel, so I'm going to just not do that because I don't want to take that chance. But it's a very simple link, overlaydfs.com. Check it out if you want to. It's a very simple website. I don't have a promo code or anything, so don't worry about that. Just check out the website, and it's pretty fun. I mean, just a start 'em, sit 'em. So anyway, guys, I'm going to leave you guys with that. Hope this video was helpful. If it was, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you're interested in spreadsheets about every single night for the NBA season, links in the description below for my Patreon. And I'll see you guys in the next video.